The health and fitness industry is inundated with shit. How are you living your life a year from now with a six-pack? What does your life look like? How you measure success in any aspect of life is vital, right? Because if it's not attainable, you're gonna have a bad time. What are you taking in? Because inputs become outputs. That's how the fitness industry makes money. To trap people into thinking it's easy and it can be done with one little thing, and that you don't actually have to do any work. But until you change your environment and you become conscious and aware of what's going on around you, you can't make that change. I competed in the first official strongman. What's the deadlift record for that weight class in Canada? And I'm like, I can smoke that. I've had quite a journey in terms of my physical body, going from, when you're 20 and you're 130 pounds, and then you're 30 and you're, 190 and one of the strongest men in the world, and now 40. More athletic and healthier now than ever in my life. Animal flow was the thing that glued my body back together after my knee problem and led me to a podium. It makes people tick, and how to hear what they're saying, even if they are not saying that was never part of the plan. Because if you don't move, you will get sick. Yeah. Period. Hard stop. Yeah. And that's just it's one of the beautiful things about life. If you removed every other human from this planet and you were alone, do you think you could have joy?
Mac, and this is Bloody Mavericks. Today we've got a really great guest on the show from the same place that a lot of people, amazing people that we had already connected in this show kind of blossom. Our common and favorite gym for this. We're gonna talk and dive deeply into multiple different subjects, but let me welcome you with Salut, comment ça va? Dain Wallis.
Ça va très bien, merci beaucoup.
Thank you for being here. It's amazing. So, Dain, let's roll off from the get-go with what we have been talking about and what you also left the information, which is you've got English, Welsh, Scottish, and you on the other side you've got some Belgian, French, and German, and little dash of native, apparently, right?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay. And I'm curious to ask you, because usually I ask those questions beforehand, and it is so phenomenal to see how people answer them and how they like to place themselves on a scale of the value of their heritage. But I want to ask, you mentioned that your heritage and your background is not necessarily so important for you right now. You are rather focusing on your growth, development, being in a good state with yourself and all that. Yet you got yourself a DNA test, 23andMe. So where that started?
That's a great question. And the 23andMe test, that was a long time ago now. I don't even know how long ago that would have been. Probably 12 years ago. And it was when 23andMe was almost a new thing. Like it was and it's just a curiosity thing, right? You're like, hey, I wonder, like what could it be? And that also, the real initiative for that wasn't necessarily where's my heritage, it was what genetic traits do I carry? Oh yeah. Because those tests come with those things as well. So it's like, am I a fast or slow metabolizer of caffeine? It's little things like that that are just interesting to find out, right? And that was one of the main reasons that I got that test. It wasn't necessarily about the heritage, but the heritage part was like super cool. It was like, yeah, of course I want to know like where I come from. And it's funny, of course, a lot of my heritage is from the UK, and if I speak to my family, they all mention like, yeah, it's like Welsh, Scottish, like they really say it's from the UK. Yeah. My grandmother will remind me all the time that there's a little bit of native, like her grandmother, so there's a little bit of North American indigenous in there. And then it's really cool to see this like the smattering of different, like all over the place. I feel like there was something from Scandinavia in there too, and even Africa. If you go far enough, I guess if you go far enough back. But whatever. Who knows how accurate those tests are?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
But I can just kind of trace back the names that I know from my family, like Wallis, Smale, Bryson. What else was there in there? Well, they're all very English names, except the only one I was Wolfsburg, if you go back into German.
Yep.
So there's, it's interesting stuff for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And before we dive a little bit deeper in it, this is one of the blind guesses, and because you said you've got some French in you, we've got some French onion soup today, and some French cheesecake as well. Go ahead.
Delicious. Awesome. I certainly won't argue with these things.
Oh, yeah?
I'll try not to slurp into the microphone.
No worries, it's a part of the show, so we are trying to. Also, because of different cultures, I believe that a lot of starts with different cuisine, and you can figure out, maybe get intrigued or interested in it.
Well, and even if there's very little French in my blood or Belgian, I lived in Belgium for 2 years.
Nice.
And France is, I think France is one of the most beautiful countries, and it has something of everything, right? There's beaches, there's mountain, there's whatever you want in France, like it has it.
That's true.
It's kind of like California in the US. There's a little bit of any type of climate that you would want to have. So visiting France is one of my favorite things to do, mine and my partners. We'll be going back. We'll be in Belgium in October, November, and then we're going to make sure we go to Paris for a couple nights too before we fly home, because it's just a fun place to go.
So where in Belgium you've been before? Belgium is super small for people who don't know. Basically 1 hour this way and 1 hour that way, and you are out the country.
And that was one of the funniest things about living in Belgium is, I had a car when I was there, and I would drive everywhere. I'd go to Amsterdam for the day and come back. It was a 2-hour drive. And people are like, what? You just go for the day? That's so far. I'm like, yeah, go to Canada. Like you can go from one side of Toronto to the other in 2 hours if, traffic is not great. And I lived right in Brussels, in the main city. So I lived there for 2 years. But, when you're in Belgium, you go to Bruges and you go to Ghent.
Yep.
And I drove through all the different, into Flanders and down south into Wallonia, just going to different places. So you drive through the countryside and you drive through it's really funny. Belgium's such a dichotomy. It's the Flanders side, the north side is so industrial, and it's even like the roads are good. It's almost more pristine, and then you go south to Wallonia and it's more farming country and like rough roads with potholes, and there's a really big divide in that country that a lot of people don't know about. And I tell people in Canada, it's like, if you think about how Quebec wanted to separate, like there's kind of like the English French there. It's kind of like the Dutch French thing in Belgium. It's similar to that. And then Brussels is just weird because it's a French speaking capital, technically in the Flanders or the Dutch speaking territory. It's very bizarre. And
I think even right now it's mainly the first language would be English even there, right?
Because if you're in Brussels,
because
the EU that's there, right? So if you go to Brussels, you almost have to speak English. Everything, all the signage there has to be in both Dutch and French.
Yeah.
But as an English tourist, you're fine to go to Brussels. Everyone speaks a little bit of English there. But if you don't speak English, you'll be fine with French.
Yeah.
Dutch, you might have some trouble. Like not everyone speaks Dutch there.
Yeah, makes sense. So, tell me what you've been up to there.
So before I began this life, my previous life, or my first quote unquote career, was in sales and marketing. So I graduated from Queen's Physical and Health Education in 2006, and I didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of school, which was actually pretty common for a lot of people who took physical and health education. And now that program is actually just called kinesiology. So it was labeled that back then. I always joke I took gym in university, so it's a funny joke. But now it's kinesiology, and coming out, like you would have to specialize in something. You would do a year of teacher's college and become a teacher. You could go do physio school. You go do chiropractic college.
Yeah.
There's all these different options. Some people went to med school, became a doctor. I was done with school. That was the one thing I knew. I was done with the whole academic bit. I just wanted to start making some money. I didn't know where I wanted to be, so I actually got a job working for Queen's Athletics. Okay. So I stayed in Kingston and started working for the marketing department and running some of like the home events. It was actually like an 8-month job. It's a contract, September through April when the games were going, and then summer off. Didn't pay great, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I figured that's interesting to me, so let's do it. So I did that. So that got me a little bit of marketing experience. Then I took the summer off, actually traveled through Europe for the first time with some friends. Came back, started that job again, but then I'm like, I need to get out of Kingston. And my sister happened to work for a software company in Gatineau up in Quebec, and they needed a marketing person. And she spoke to her boss, who was a relatively young guy, and he just wanted somebody who could speak French and English and who he could mold. And she threw my name in the ring, so I went up for an interview, and we really hit it off. And 2 weeks later, I was working a random job in Gatineau, Quebec, in a French translation company. It was like very strange. And then a year later, they shipped me off to Belgium to work in the European office, which happened to be in Brussels. Nice. Because the sales support coordinator was quitting. And again, I was young, I knew the software at that point. They're like, hey, do you want to go live in Brussels for 2 years? Why not? And so there I was in Europe, randomly. And like, even my good friends, basically nobody knew what I did. And they're like, now you're moving to Europe? What is happening? So it was an interesting time in life.
So how old were you back then? How old were you then?
25.
25, okay.
Yeah, 25 and unattached. It was a pretty easy decision. Just be like, yeah, I'm going to go to Brussels for 2 years and see what happens.
Was it on any point that already connecting to yours to sports and going like deeply into exercising and doing that, or was it still?
So at that point in time, I just really liked working out. I never went to a gym until I was 20.
Okay.
So it was when third year university, the first class, I was in class, and at the end of the class, somebody was like, hey, who wants to go to the gym? And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go to the gym. First time ever. So 3 of us went to the gym, and then since that day, I basically never missed. Like I just fell in love with it, and turns out I added a lot of muscle like really quickly within the first several months. I was like $130, so 130 pounds, like dripping wet, not a big guy. So I'm about 5'8", and I was up to 155 by like the following semester. I started eating breakfast, which I never did, and I started going to the gym, and just like that, like there's like 20 pounds of muscle. Nice. And so I genetically, something within my body was, pretty good at building muscle and responding to that. Again, look at my 23andMe, a lot of fast twitch muscle. Whatever, take it for what it's worth. So I just really liked working out when I went to Brussels. And when I was in Brussels, I'd had one summer of strongman competitions before going to Brussels, because my friends kind of like, hey, come compete, even though I was competing against guys who were like 300 pounds and getting like last place and not being able to lift half the stuff. But I was like, yeah, sure, let's compete. But I had no intentions at that point of ever like getting into it seriously. Like seriously, I was like, no, I'll just go there, lift weights, and see what happens. And then things happen.
And it seems like you got kind of addicted to it, huh? One after another. What led you to kind of pursue that in more, I don't know, professional way or more serious manner?
When I learned that there were actually weight classes. So when I was doing like that first summer that I think I did 7 competitions the summer when I was 24. And which again was like 3 years after I started lifting weights. Like it was all very fresh. And then there was no weight class. There was one show up in Northern Ontario that ran a weight class show every year, and I went up to that, and I did win that competition. But every other show was just big guys. There was no actual organization that ran weight classes, as far as I knew, anywhere. I hadn't looked into it. Then when I came back from Brussels, and in Belgium, again, the decisions you make kind of blaze your path. But I looked up who's Belgian's strongest man when I got there, and I just found his email. And so I emailed him like the week I got there, and I was like, hey, I like strongman. Do you train strongman? He was like, yeah, on Saturdays. You want to come? Come. And so on weekends there, I was actually driving to Flanders to train with Belgian's strongest man, who was at the time like top 20 in the world.
Awesome.
So training with him and some guys, even though I wasn't competing, but he ran a newcomers cup like 2 weeks before I came home at the end of my 2 years, and I competed in that. Nice. With vicious food poisoning, which is a whole nother story, but and that was cool. And then when I got back, I randomly did a competition in Toronto like a year later, and there was somebody in the audience who saw me competing against all these big guys, and he was like, are you competing in the US? And I'm like, no. He's like, there are weight classes in the US and you would be incredible. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, contact this person. She runs all the shows in the US. And I reached out to her and she was like, oh, awesome. World Championships are in February. You want to come? And I was like, excuse me? She's like, yeah, we want a representative from Canada and you guys don't have a sanctioned body. So if this guy's vouching for you and says you're strong enough, I trust him. Come on in. So there I was. I was like, I didn't know what I was getting into. And so then it's like, well, I've already done worlds. I guess I should just keep this up and keep going. So, wild story.
So you found a way to kind of found a way where to get into what you like doing and wanted to pursue just a little bit outside of the common current and like, if there is no way, let's make a way sort of approach, right? So
yeah, again, it's just something I liked doing. The people I was doing it with, I had a great time with them. It was never me thinking that this was going to become such an intense part of my identity, right? It was never about that. And then you just, you keep going, doing something you enjoy and you get really good at it. And then when opportunity presents itself, it's the thing about luck, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you have to be prepared to take advantage of the opportunities that come up.
So true.
So there's
all of the universe aligning when you are ready.
Yeah.
Right. Teacher appearing when you are ready for it and all that, right? So there are, in every culture there is some shape or form of that, like being ready and being open to hearing what can come your way. Yeah, it's phenomenal how it unfolds. I wanna circle back to, we're gonna definitely continue on the story, how your progress went into the strongman and all your competing part, but I want to touch on that part where we were talking about the heritage. What made you set your mind towards this is kind of outside of the horizon, I don't want to focus on it? Or is it certain part of you that is still kind of open to it? Or did you seen and checked everything that you wanted about your background and talked about all the stories?
It's interesting because it's not something I'd really given a lot of thought to recently until you spoke to me about this podcast. And then I was like, that's interesting how heritage, lineage is such a big part of certain people's lives, right?
Yeah. Especially
Especially people I find who are, because I'm from Canada, so I meet people in Canada, but it's people who are immigrants to Canada, more recent immigrants, right? And so for me, I grew up in a small town of like 1,000 people in rural Ontario, white people, right? Like just farmers. It was like, I'm not sure in my life I ever met somebody who wasn't white until high school at some point, when a kid from Toronto happened to move to our area. So for me, it was just never a thing growing up that anybody really spoke about. like you knew certain kids at school were Dutch, right? They're just like, they were Dutch here. The farmers were
That's right.
they were Dutch farmers in our area where we grew up. So you heard speak of Dutch, but there was never any talk of where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at that, I guess it's because, you know, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my great-great-grandparents, they were all from North America. Yeah. Like they weren't, it's been a long time since somebody, and my heritage was from somewhere else. So I guess those things are just, you know, I'm Canadian, American Canadian to like the core, really. And so I guess that's really what it is. And recently in my life, I've, you know, beliefs change over time.
That's right.
And you learn things, and as I've gotten older and learned things, to me, there's certain things that have landed as being more important to me than stuff like heritage, for example. Whereas like that's the past. And while I'm super grateful for everything that's happened to land me here. Yeah. Right. And nobody knows what this is. Nobody knows what this life is. How do we have consciousness? Like, where do we go after this? We don't know this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so for me, it's all I can really control is how I act in this lifetime. And what can I do in this lifetime to experience the best life possible, but also what can I do in this lifetime to make sure everyone around me also has that, right? Because if there's anything that has gotten me to this point that I've gotten from my heritage, it's privilege, right? Like I'm a white kid born in Ontario in a super safe place. Like never in my life was I afraid to go anywhere or walk anywhere or drive anywhere. Never was I worried about having food on the table. Never was I worried about even like abuse from family members. Like I've never experienced any of that. And that is such a massive privilege. So if I've gained anything from my heritage, is I was so damn fortunate to come from what I came from and to have the people in my life that I have had such a safe and privileged upbringing. Yeah. Right. And so for me, I try and not take that for granted and try and give back and be kind. Right. Because I've had it pretty damn good. And I don't know. For me, it's just like wherever that came from, I can be very grateful for it. But I know that I just want to do better than anybody who has come before me. And to me, that means being kind and helping others and, you know, looking for equity and equality and making that happen. So kind of a long-winded answer, but that's where my brain has really been more the past few years rather than like what's been happening. It's like, no, what can I do?
That's amazing to see that you've got that internal gratefulness for whatever put you in the position where you are right now, all the people who came before you and yeah, kind of privileged situation. And like we have a lot of conversation with my wife when she's saying that, yeah, we are privileged white people. And we are privileged that we could afford to move from one country to another. We were privileged to be able to educate ourselves, to go through it, to check and try and travel and broaden our horizons, right? And it is super important to kind of ground yourself from time to time and kind of remind that yeah, there is way more to it and just not take it for granted.
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to my mom I was visiting her at home not long ago, and she was speaking about some of the stories that she'd just recently uncovered because her sister had uncovered some letters that were written by not her, I think it's her cousin's father. Her uncle, way back. And there's a lot of people in on that side of the family who I've never met, don't really know. And I think in everyone's family, there's been people who maybe weren't the best people. Yeah. And on that side of the family, there were definitely some just like not great people. And a lot of alcoholism, like just a lot of stuff that, you know. So again, going back, like you're going to find some great people. You're going to find some stuff you're real proud of. And of course, you're going to find some stuff that's like, Man, I got it pretty good. Like I got a good selection of the gene pool, and I was raised by the right people, and just be really grateful for that, you know? So that's really what I try and pull on.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna make a small break.
Yeah.
Because I forgot to switch one switch, and that camera just 20 minutes in, just turn off.
It happens, man. That's podcasting.
It's just
It happens all.
Live beast.
Mm-hmm.
I've got new challenges with it every single time. Like something new here, something new there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. So we touched on the gratefulness part, and you kind of, it is fascinating for me that I don't meet a lot of people who come from a privileged background and they are where they are coming from that background, and that is phenomenal that you see that and you appreciate that part. But I want to hear what you think about, because you said something that moved me, and I have had couple discussions on that subject. Is I'm Canadian as it gets, right? I'm Canadian to the core. In my perspective, the real Canadians are the natives in this land, right? So at the end of the day, we are all guests, right? And this is a part where a lot of people are going, yes, we came here. That's right. There is at certain point we all end up here for some reason or another, right? Generations ahead, generations before, or ourselves like us, but it is a journey, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Have you wondered, or have you been going into the native part any way or form?
I haven't. And again, this is, man, that's such a loaded, heavy topic, right?
It is.
And again, I would call that a part of my I would say even upbringing that I'm not proud of. Where again, I grew up near Ipperwash Beach. And so growing up, there was at one point, there was a standoff between the cops and indigenous peoples on reserve. And a man named Dudley George got shot and killed. And again, I don't remember all the details of that, but the narrative around all that was just very, very anti-indigenous people. It was very like, we've given them that land and those reserves, and like they're taking advantage of this and that, right? And that's, man, where I'm from, that is still the narrative. That is exactly what everyone just leans into. And that's what I was raised. And if you spoke to me 10 years ago, that's probably where I would have been. And again, definitely not proud of that. But over the past several years, and this is where me understanding my privilege comes in, is I've started to do my work. Yeah. And some people scoff at that, and I think, okay, well, that's lost cause, right? Like that's really unfortunate. Right. Like you're part of the problem. Yeah. And we have to take a step back and actually be like, yeah, we're living on land that people came into, like white people came into, and they just took what they wanted, and they killed a lot of people, and that was a more uncivilized time. Yep. It just was. Yep. Now we're living in a more civilized world. Things have changed now. That's right? And so, look, I don't have the answers. How you can't undo what happened. Of course. You can't just give everything back. You can't, right? But like segregation is never the answer. And we have to just be aware of what we've done and listen and try to see Native people and hear Native people and try to not give them everything, but ask them, what can we do? Right? And try and just see what we can do to get rid of that old narrative and just be like, if we're here now, we're Canadian. If you were born here, you're Canadian. If you immigrated here, you're Canadian, right? It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter where you came from. Like this is a welcoming country, and that's one of the reasons I was always be proud to be Canadian, because we were such a welcoming, open country. And now with all the political garbage that's happened over the past, 10-ish years, so many people have turned their back on that image, right? Where we're like, it's all, because people get caught up in the economy, and I'm like, man, like, can't we just be kind? Like, I understand there are economical things to worry about. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's a lot more to it than just immigrants are bad or something like that, right? There's discussions to be had, but on the Native front, it's like, I've never looked into it just because, again, growing up, it wasn't something you wanted to look into. And since then, I just really haven't given it a whole lot of thought, except other than just, again, doing my work and trying to be grateful for what I have and trying to be kind and just doing the right thing as much as possible.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you've got limited resources and abilities, and if you can lead with a kindness in mind first, then as much as it's available to you, and through those conversations even, right?
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense, and it might help some people stop and think for a little bit, right? For a moment.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? Is to all of us acknowledging our biases and actually listening.
Oh yeah.
Like actually listening and trying to understand, right? This is another big part of what I've been working on both personally and professionally, and it's catching judgment when you have it, because we all have it.
Yeah.
Judgment comes in all the time. Judgment and criticism, whether it's towards someone else or towards ourselves.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Thoughts fly inside here, right?
Yeah.
But catching when you're just like, when you're emotional and you're maybe something has, put you out, so that's inconvenienced you, and now you're emotional about it, and then it's just like that judgment or that bias, and it just jumps in. The first step is catching that, because if you don't know you're doing it, it's over.
How do you go about catching it though? What's
again? There's no like magic trick to it, but when you become to me, it's like when I become emotional, when I become hot about something or whatever, it's okay. Is this just a trigger, something that's happened before? Is this, I'm just upset because it's actually my fault, but that person's doing that, so I can blame them. It's having a conscious dialogue rather than being on autopilot. True. And that's hard.
It is.
Especially nowadays when we have phones and we're just bombarded with information all over the place. Yeah. Things happen real fast, right? Our thoughts and then taking in, like the brain handles a lot. So stopping and actually putting conscious effort and thought into something is actually like, again, it's effort. It takes effort. People don't want to give effort to things.
So true.
But that's part of doing the work, right? If you want to become a better person or you want to change in some way, if you feel like you're not the person you can be, man, it's gonna take some time, and you're gonna make mistakes, and probably gonna be an asshole sometimes, but it's learning, right? It's taking that judgment and that criticism and turning it into curiosity, saying, why did I jump to that? Why is that where my thought went? Why did I act that way? And again, that's work. You have to work through that. It's not just, it's gonna happen on autopilot, you're gonna do it. That's going to take some reflection and thinking, wow,
so true,
maybe that wasn't a good call. How can I do better next time? Right?
Yeah.
It's work. People don't want to do work, but it's worth it, right? And if people actually took the time to be a little bit more conscious and not just get lost in the echo chamber of what they watch on the news or what they get on Instagram or what the assholes at the gym are saying or whatever, that's right. Like, you have to be and again, we could go down the rabbit hole of that too, right? Of like, what are you taking in? Because inputs become outputs, whether it's true or right or not. So there's, again, it's a lot of things we could talk about there.
There's a lot. And the best example of working through it, I think I can say from my own perspective, is I thanks to my wife and our conversations and multiple fights that we go through.
Mm-hmm.
And we started them really early, and we work a lot of shit from the get-go. So we went through the hardest part, like put it all on the table and just work it,
mm-hmm.
right? And another example is of working through my own shit is you sitting here, because the first interaction that we had together, I was a dick to you.
Oh God, that's so funny. I already forgot that.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
I remember the situation. I was on my headphones. I was deeply in my flow, and something, and you guys threw me off, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And I remember blowing up for no fucking reason.
So funny.
And here we are. So it's long time after talking and having those conversations, deeper ones.
You want to know what's funny about that?
Yeah.
So that happened, and we like went into the other room. You know, like whatever. We were moving around. That's why it happened, because we were going back and forth. And I was just like, woo. Like I was like, woo. And I was like, you know what? Like I don't know what's. I even said this loud. I was like, I don't know what he's got going on right now. I'm like, I don't know what happened in his day. Like he could be going through something right now. Like that interaction doesn't mean he's a bad person. Like that happened in the other room when that occurred.
That was cool.
Yeah. So it's just really but that reaction for me, 5 years ago, no, I would have gone there and go, what an asshole. Like see what that guy did.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a journey. It's a journey, right?
It
and
is.
again, evolution and change is a part of life if you want it to be, right? And you just mentioned, you know, the arguments with your wife and these things, right? And part of a relationship and a relationship evolving, like it's always, are the two people both willing to evolve? Because usually what happens if a relationship is ending or going to end or inevitably going to end, it's when one person is like, they're ready to evolve and change. The other person is just like, this is where I want to be. I'm here.
So true.
And that's that. It can be in a friendship. It can be in a partnership. It can be in a romantic relationship. It doesn't matter. But people have to be willing to navigate things together. And if that happens, any relationship is possible.
That's right.
That's not always going to be easy. But at least you have that dialogue going, right? And you're willing to take that risk or take that chance or make that change, right? And as long as you are, you'll evolve as a person and you'll evolve as a couple. And that's the beautiful thing about life, right? Nothing stays static. You can fight it all you want, but things are going to change.
So true.
So gotta be ready for it.
And it's the same for all type of relationship, I would say.
Yeah.
Like real, if you think about the real friendships, is like, we need to work this shit together. I'm going those there. Are you coming along? Should I drag you, or are you jumping and we're gonna go head to head, right?
Absolutely.
And very often through life we have friends who come and go, right? Because of that reasons.
And that's another thing. Like again, coming from a small town, the expectation is that the friends you make when you're a kid aren't going to be your friends forever, because that's what your parents were like, that's what your grandparents were like, because you're from a small community. Yeah. I was one of very few people from my small community who went away to university. There were not many, maybe a couple dozen. And so and then when I got there, it was like, oh my goodness, like I've found my people, right? And then even after that, there's so many different points in life where you meet people that you're just like I've known you before. Like there's, you know, and I've never met you, but yeah, we've met before. You know, there's that connection, and it's okay to lose contact with people. Like people come and go for a reason. Yeah. Like you meet people at a certain point in your life for a reason, because your path has evolved to that point, and that person was on that evolution in a way as well, right? They met at that point, and maybe it's just intersecting and it's very short, right? Or maybe it's like, oh, now you're married. Like, you know,
that's right.
Who knows? But it's taken me a while also to accept that it's okay to have a friend fade into the background, and that doesn't mean forever. Yeah. But sometimes they're gone forever. Sometimes they're just gone for a bit and they'll come back. That's okay. That's no problem. Yeah. There's no owing. You don't owe anybody anything. It's just life, right? And and again, like if an old friend just kind of contacted me out of the blue and like was in an emergency, damn right I'd be there, right? The same, and I'm sure that would be the same way for somebody in my past. If I needed them for some reason, like they'd be there.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's one of the beautiful things about life.
It is. There's so much about just that topic alone, right? Through communication, through exchanging ideas and coming, as you mentioned, for a short period of time. Like I heard I think it was in a lecture of some sorts where someone was saying that some of our friends come as propel rockets to the main mothership, and as the mothership ascends, those propelling rockets need to fall off, right? And this is really good analogy of it, but there are some rockets that stay and go all the way, right?
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's not good or bad.
Yeah.
It just is. That's what happens.
Yeah.
It's okay.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Dain, how are you different?
In what way? I'm pretty different in a lot of ways, let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
I think we've covered quite a few ways in which I'm pretty different. I mean,
which is the way that you wanna go deeper into?
Yeah. Well, again, right now, I really do think that one of the things that really sets me apart is what we spoke about in terms of having done some of my work. And I feel like I have a really good ability to see people and hear people. And I've really been working on that. It's the smallest thing, but as humans, we crave connection and community.
That's so true.
And you don't even know what smiling at somebody on the street could do for them in a bad moment, right? So again, I'm a coach. I coach people at the gym, like you see.
Yeah.
I coach people across the world, just working on nutrition, working on lifestyle, working on life.
Yeah.
And hearing people. When people don't feel like they don't have anyone to talk to, or they're not being seen and not being heard, that's where a lot of problems start for people, right? So I really try to, again, do my work for my own mental health, but I really do work hard on being present when I'm speaking with someone, and even on the streets. Like I really do try and smile at people. I try and make eye contact in Toronto, and it's the funniest thing for me when you look at someone and you smile at them and they're like caught off guard and then they smile back. Because in Toronto, it's rare. People are like head down, like for the most part. But I think everyone in the world now, people are just like head in the phones, walking. But still, there's a lot of beautiful people in Canada and in Toronto. Like we do have a great country. We have a lot of great people here.
So true.
And people love connection. So I think that is one thing that really does set me apart as a human being in today's day and age, is just, again, like you said, understanding my privilege and then working hard to make like actual connections with people and make people feel heard and seen. So I think that really does set me apart, both as a person and as a coach in what I do. And that's definitely one of them. And then just, physically, the fact that I was one of the strongest men in the world. That's right. At pound for pound, and now it's funny how much it's just swung, like the pendulum has just swung, because I do very little weight training now, and I'm far more into animal flow, ground-based movement, and just feeling really good in my body and finding ways to make my body, like, just as Animal Flow would put it, it's just basically the human animal and making it as proficient as possible at all things. And I've had quite a journey in terms of my physical body, going from, when you're 20 and you're 130 pounds, and then you're 30 and you're, 190 and one of the strongest men in the world, and now 40 and like, I'm like 165 now, kind of in the middle, but I'm more athletic and healthier now than ever in my life. I mean, I had blood work done at 30 and I just had blood work done now and I'm about to turn 40 and like everything perfect right now. Whereas when I was 30, it was like I had low iron, I had like low testosterone, I had super high blood pressure, which I was like, oh, that's familial. No problem, I don't have to worry about it. It's familial, it'll never come down. False. Do some exercise, eat better, sleep better, perfect blood pressure now when I'm older. So a lot of things are within our control in that respect. But yeah, I think there's quite a few things that set me apart, but those are probably two of the big ones.
So let's circle back to your journey, because we broke on the moment where you started your career into athletic career into strongman. You did some bodybuilding. No bodybuilding. I did one powerlifting competition. I did one powerlifting competition. This is when I just gotten back from Belgium. So when I was in Belgium, like I said, I was there for 2 years, and for the first year and a half, I was like, YOLO, drinking all the beer, eating all the frites, like waffles. Didn't care about nutrition at all. It's like, who cares? I'm in Europe, going to enjoy it. And then it was like January of 2013, about 5 months before I went back, and I was like, I am a milk bag. I'm not super happy. I was 200 pounds. I was just really soft. I was very strong, very strong. It was the biggest I'd been, but I was like, you know what? It's not for me. I need to get a hold of this. Yeah. So that was the point of beginning of 2013. So yeah, 10 years, like almost 10 years to the day now, that I was like, okay, I'm going to really learn about nutrition and dial it in and see what happens. And so that was kind of the moment where everything shifted for me, and I really started getting back into nutrition and just learning more, like back into learning, because I totally given up learning after school. I was like, I'm done with school. I'll never learn again. And then it's just like, oh crap, there's so much more to learn. Like I don't know anything and I can do so much better. Yeah. And so that kind of started that journey back to, all right, I'm going to lose a little bit of weight. And then I got back and I was much smaller, and I think powerlifting, maybe the weight class was 165. I don't really know, but I just looked it up when I got home. What's the deadlift record for that weight class in Canada? And I'm like, I can smoke that. So I just signed up for a powerlifting competition to go in, get that record. So I want that record. So got the record, and I was like, well, I don't know what I was expecting. Some fireworks to go off or something, but I'm like, basically sitting around, powerlifting it's just not for me. It's, you're sitting around all day and waiting to lift again, and it just didn't do it for me. Yeah. So that was not a super fun day, and then I got the record, and I was like, oh, okay. No, nobody cares? All right. And so I was like, whatever. No, I'm not going to compete again. And then after that, what happened? Strongman. And I'm trying to remember if that was the same summer. I think it was the following summer. The following summer, a friend of mine was running the strongman competition at the Toronto Pro Show. And I knew of this competition. I'd been to the Pro Show before to check it out. And he needed somebody last minute. I didn't even sign up for this thing. But somebody dropped out and he was like, oh man, I know you're in Toronto. Like, can you just come fill space? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I showed up and I was holding my own, like no problem. I was a training strongman at the time. I was just lifting it good life. And I already told you the other part. The guy was like, signed up, and then was like, wow, okay, I'm going to go to Worlds. So the following March, I'd like trained over the summer to go, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And I did really well, except for one event just totally smoked me, that I hadn't ever really done before. And so I got second last on that event. And in strongman, the points go, like if you have 10 people, then the person who wins the event gets 10 points. The person who loses or gets last gets 1 point. But if you zero, you get 0 points. Yeah. Anyway, there are 28 guys in this competition. So if you get like last place, you're done. You can't qualify for the final stage. And if I'd finished like 12th or something, I would have qualified for the final stage because I did really well on all the other events. And it was just that one that I just hadn't practiced enough, and it really sunk me. And then from there, that was kind of like in my head the whole time. And it wasn't until my final Worlds I had that event again, and I got second on it,
because of some damn lanky kid who had an advantage over me. But I had some redemption towards the end of my career, which was good.
But you've got Canadian titles.
Yeah. So, and again, so there weren't weight classes in Canada that first Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have it in Canada until 2 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 years later. So the following year, I went back to Worlds on invitation again, because we didn't have that there. And I finished, this was a real kick. I finished tied for 4th. Mm-hmm. And in Strongman, the way that's set up at the Arnold, it's at the Arnold Championships, there's 4 events, and then whoever's in the top 4 qualifies for the next day where there are 2 events, and then it's up to those 4. So I finished tied for 4th.
Oh yeah.
And I lost on what's called a countback. And a countback is who had the highest placing in one of the events. He'd won one of the other events. I had not, so he got to go, and I didn't. Good. So he got to go to the following day, and I didn't, even though I tied for 4th. Such a kick in the. I was just very, very displeased with that. That was not a good time. And then after that, I knew I was right there, and I knew, and that was the worst part too. I knew that year, like if I'd made it the events, the final stage, I'm like, oh yeah, I could definitely take this. I was right there. Following year, yes, then there were Canadians, so I won the Canadian Championship the following 2 years. And the first year, I actually didn't go to the Arnold because I had a knee injury. I had a tear in my patella tendon. And so I had to get that repaired. And so I had to skip Arnold's, unfortunately. But I didn't miss Canadians again. I won Canadians after that. And then I went back the following year, and I finished 5th again.
Nice.
Right off the stage.
Yeah.
And it's because I screwed up my best event. My best event at that time was yoke. You just put it on your back and you run with it. And I was so dead set on winning that damn event because there were 2 other guys who were really good at it, and they were like talking a big game, and I was just like, I'm gonna smoke them. You watch. And then I picked it up and I dropped it like almost immediately. Like I just took a misstep, boom, dropped it, got like 8th in that event, and that like 1 point like cost me. It's funny, right? You get out of the moment, you start thinking about not what you're doing, but what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
and you're done because you're not in your body and you're not focused on what you're doing, and that was a big lesson. Following year, got back to the Arnold, got 3rd, finished on the podium. Nice. That was good enough for me. I'm like, I don't need to get first. I just needed to get to this. I'm happy. I've got my Canadian Championships. I've got a bunch of top 5 placings at Worlds. I don't have anything to prove. This is fine. Moving on. And it was great. No, I have no regrets.
So, going through all those steps, all those competitions, winning Canadians, and then getting on the podium on the final, the last Arnold's. What shifted? What changed? So you went from going to being a strongest man in the world in your category towards animal flow and being more attuned with your body and working it and being more athletic and strong in a more natural way. Where that all come together?
And again, it wasn't planned. None of it was planned, right? This was, like I said, when you I spent like 10 years just like training hard, right? Like training really hard and asking a lot of my body. And whether at the beginning it was to compete in strongman or not, I knew it's like I love deadlifting. Kind of like, I want to set a record. I want to, I had those ambitions. And so the knee injury was a bit of a turning point. And so right before that's basically when I met Freya, who's my partner. And so I don't call her my wife because we're not married and we're not getting married, but she's my wife. She's not going anywhere. So we have an amazing relationship, and she's changed my life. She's the reason that I'm speaking the way I am today, because you want to talk about a rocket ship and like latching onto it. I mean, I'm on her rocket ship, right? That's how I'll speak. She'll be like, stop that. I'll be like, no, you're a rocket ship, babe. But she's so smart, and she's been in the health and fitness industry for 20 years. Like she took human kinetics wealth, and she's been in it for her whole life. She's worked at the sports medicine specialists, which is now the Cleveland Clinic, in sports rehabilitation. She's now doing her master's after all these years. She's like, no, I'm going to go back and get it. Let's do this thing. She's done a million things. She worked for, she did fitness education for like 5 or 7 years, where she literally like taught trainers all across Canada. Like she has had her fingers on so many young trainers that they've learned so much from her. So this is just who she is. She is an educator and a leader in this industry. And I was so fortunate to not just meet her, but then to like saddle up next to her and join my life to hers. And she's really changed my life. And again, I know I'm the one who has to put the work in. But to have that kind of influence is phenomenal. And so she's the one who said, your knee is still not feeling good, and it's not feeling good basically when you're doing nothing at this point. Like, you need to get an MRI. Like, get that looked at. Because otherwise, I would have just pushed through it, first of all. And then it would have totally ruptured my knee, and that would have been probably career-ending. It would, like, whole different story. But I got that, nipped it in the bud, and then the rehabilitation process is when I started learning a little bit of animal flow, because that's such a powerful tool for anything, but like rehabilitation, especially any type of closed chain movement where like hands and feet are on like a stable surface is so powerful and such a nice complement to any open chain, which is basically everything in strongman. So I started dabbling with that. And to me, it was just a tool, right? I was like, I'm going back to Worlds. I'm going to win this thing. I was still like dead set at that point. And then, I was turning like 34, 35. And just things in life change. And something started to change. And try not to get emotional.
Go on it.
So my grandmother passed away. And we were very close. And it was right this time in my life. And so between the Arnold competitions, there's also another competition now called Official Strongman Games, which is kind of taken the reign as Worlds. They both call themselves Worlds now. One was 2 Worlds. And I competed in the first official strongman, or maybe it's the second one, whatever, doesn't matter. One of the first ones. And it was right about the time, it was right before my last Arnold. So 4 months before the last Arnold. And I was going to that competition and I was training for it, but I had such a bad training cycle for it. And I didn't really know why. And I'd learned, I'm trying to remember if it was I didn't know what was going on. And then coming back from that, we were driving back from West Virginia, stopped in at my grandma's on the way to Toronto, had dinner with her. And like, she was like, her little back was hurting, like, and she's always been so like, firecracker, do anything. And like, I broke down in the car. I was like I'm gonna lose her. And she was gone by January. Like, when it was like, boom, like cancer, right? Because she was just like, I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm in the worst pain ever. And then she's gone. But I told her, because she was always like, you're not going to keep doing these stupid competitions, right? She was always so worried about me, of course, as, mothers, grandmothers, they be. And I told her, I'm like, for whatever reason, this is going to be my last. I'm just like, I can feel it. Things are shifting in me. I'm going to be done. So regardless of what happened at that Arnold, I was going to be done. The fact that I did finally get to that podium was just like, I did it, right? But then it was far easier for me to walk away because I had told her that. And it was hard, right? Because everyone knows you as a strongman. Everyone at Forest is like, hey, what's your next competition? Hey, like, what's going on? Like, for years, like, it's stopped now. Like, maybe get it once in a while, but it was constant, right? And I'm like, who knows? Like, whatever. Because, I don't know, it's a hobby. You don't really retire from it. I wasn't professional. Yeah. And so it just was a kind of like a natural shift. And that also, right about that time, is when, like, throughout all my competitions, I was still working a sales job. Like, I was still working a sales job. I'd come back to Canada, and I got my as soon as I got back from Belgium in 2013, I got my CSCS, and I started taking my first precision nutrition certification. So I was diving into it, and I was like, okay, I'm I'm going to follow this. I'm going to get into fitness. And then buddy of a buddy knew a guy who like had a great sales job and like great dude. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll look into it. And I was like, oh, it pays pretty good. Oh, they give you a car. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I like went through it and I got the job and I was like, all right, here we go. So parked that kind of stuff on the side. Still was like, you know, I'd started a blog at that point and I was still very much doing fitness things, but had this job, and that carried through for almost 5 years until basically the Arnold was done. And that's when I was like, nah, we're done. Like this is everything's shifting. And I quit that job and just went full time into nutrition coaching, which was, I think I had one personal training client at that point in time, but it was mainly just nutrition coaching clients. And again, like Freya helped me build that network of people. She had so many people that she was training and she knew that needed nutrition help. And she's like, you would be great at this. Like, just go for it. So I was like, all right, let's do this. And dove into that and just kept getting, you know, certifications and learning. And Animal Flow has been a big part of that journey, not just because how great the system is and how great it makes my body feel and how much better it's made me as a coach, but we are like best friends with the people who created the system, with Mike and Karen. And they're just such great people. And they've created such an amazing community. The Animal Flow community, it's wild what they've created. Like a lot of people don't know what Animal Flow is, but you can, like, there's a Facebook group. Yeah. And you can be in any country in the world. Go on that group and say, hey, is anybody in this country? Do you want to go flow? You'll get a response. And in an hour, you'll be in the park communicating in a language that only people who have taken the Animal Flow course know. And whether you speak the same native language doesn't matter, because there's a language that it's English words, but it's words that don't make sense, right? It's like left leg side kick through. What does that mean to you, right? If you've taken the course, you know. So it's such a cool thing, and people come from all over the world to go to like mentorships and retreats, and they've just created such a cool thing. And so that's our journey, Freya and I. It's really like it's melded with the Animal Flow journey and with everything else that. And I even said to Mike not long ago, part of the level 3 certification, because there's 3 levels of Animal Flow, and I've taken the level 3 cert. I haven't tested it out yet. I'm in the process. But part of that is just sending a video to Mike and telling him what Animal Flow means to me. And I never really thought about it, right? And at the end of the day, the message that came out of my mouth was just that to me, it really is about freedom. It's given me so much freedom. It's given me freedom within my own body to do things I wasn't able to do. Animal Flow was the thing that glued my body back together after my knee problem and led me to a podium. It's allowed me to travel all over the world. It allows me to be a better coach and coach people remotely. Because it's a body weight system, so you don't need anything. You need your body on the floor, right? So it gives me so much freedom in everything that I do and everything that I feel, that it was such a natural evolution for me to go that path. And I never would have thought that. That was never part of the plan. There was no plan, right? It was really, I didn't have like an athletic or recreational plan. It was, hey, I've quit this cushy job. I need to make a living. I need to get really good at this and just keep learning and keep being humble and build my business. And that's really where the focus was. But in doing that, if you want to become a good coach, you better be doing your work. You better be working on your compassion, right? So like you better be figuring out like what makes people tick and how to hear what they're saying, even if they are not saying everything, right? And so all of that has led to all the things we're talking about today, right? And it's led me out of strongman, and it was tough, right? It becomes such a part of your identity, but it was after a few years it had become easy, because I was also, you're so locked into like, this is how I eat, these are my macros, I'm on a training plan, I can't miss a work, like you're so regimented. And now it's like, I don't remember the last time I counted a macro or a calorie or was on a program. Like it's been so long. It feels like it's been so long now. And there was you go back 5 years ago and I would have been like, as if that'll happen. And now it's like, it just happened. Yep. It just happens. It's again, and this goes back to like things change and that's okay.
So what would you say to where are you now?
Where am I now? Well, I'm in Toronto, hanging out with my buddy. Where am I now? I'm right where I need to be. And I say this to Freya all the time. Just again, it comes back to gratitude and how fortunate we are. And we, even right now with the state of the world, which again, if you want to sit there and you want to focus on what's happening with whatever, the climate or the economy, my bank account, like if you want to focus on like what's happening in the world with everything, indigenous people, like again, you could really get yourself into a bad spot. And so despite all that, I really try and just focus on how fortunate I am. And this is, you talk about inflation. We were very fortunate to be able to purchase a home last year. Like literally put every damn dime I've ever saved in my life into getting into the real estate market. Right when interest rates were low. And of course the advice is get a variable rate. And now our payments have tripled, right? But again, I go back to my privilege. We're not going to default on a payment. Like we're so fortunate to be in the position that we're in right now where we have stable jobs and we have stable health and we live in a safe place. It's easy to go down the rabbit hole and you could get really bummed out. And man, it sucks out there right now. I feel horrible for lower income people and like even the middle class, like lower middle, like people are getting killed right now with like, it's going to be bad over the next little bit. And I'm just like, it's tough. So to be where I am right now, it's just, do I feel fortunate, right? I'm very fortunate to have the safe home that we have, even if it's way more than I thought it was ever going to be given to a bank. We're going to be okay. And just, we're on a great trajectory because we work with such great people. We work at such a welcoming, safe place.
That's right.
I mean, Freya doesn't work there. She will be coming back, and she's doing masters right now. She'll be there at some point again. But I'm there 4 days a week. There's just a lot to be grateful for, and I really feel like I'm 39 right now. I turn 40 in November. I feel the next decade we're gonna have so many opportunities presented to us, and again, we're just gonna keep working, right? Like our podcast has been on hiatus for a while now because she's back at school and there's just not been a lot of time. We're gonna get that back online because we love having that outlet and something where we can provide good information about health and fitness to people. Unbiased, like not bringing on people to sell a book or to sell supplements or to give you like bad information just to like fill a slot, right? Trying to put that information out because that's our whole ethos with Move Daily is giving people good information and empowering people to do what they need to do within their bodies. And that doesn't mean hiring us as a coach. That means like us encouraging you to do your work, right? To pay attention. Just pay attention, right? What are you feeling? What are you actually feeling? Name that feeling, right? Who's influencing you? Like when you feel that way and it's awful and that triggers whatever that you're trying to get away from, what inputs led you to that feeling, right? There are people around you, there are news around you, there are phones, there are all sorts of things that are driving people into states that they're trying to get away from. But until you change your environment and you become conscious and aware of what's going on around you, you can't make that change, right? You have to accept where you're at, you have to be conscious, and you have to be able to put in the work. And so that's a big part of our ethos is getting people moving first and foremost, because if you don't move, you will get sick. Period, hard stop. You have to move your body daily. And then from there, it's all the other pieces around that, right? But when you're moving, your brain works better. When your brain works better, now you actually have the wherewithal to make a change.
So true.
So where I'm at, couldn't be more fortunate to be where I'm at.
So where are you going?
Didn't I just say that?
No.
Where are we going? Well, we're not going anywhere. We just bought a home, so we're gonna live in that for a while. But in terms of like business, Move Daily Health Coaching is our business. Canada's Nutrition Coach is my proprietary sole proprietorship. That's where I handle all of my nutrition coaching. So that part of that business it's all remote, do Zoom calls, phone calls with people. And, it's Canada's Nutrition Coach, but that's where I started, right? I said I became a nutrition coach.
Yeah.
My skill set has expanded so much from that point that I am, to label myself as a nutrition coach right now does myself such a huge disservice. I'm a health coach and I am a kinesiologist, a registered kinesiologist. Like those are the terms that I would go by. I can absolutely help people with nutrition. I can help people with, lifestyle, sleep, that nature of things. I can help people with their movement. Again, I have a broad skill set, and that is our business is going to continue to grow, both the nutrition coaching and the health coaching under that umbrella, both in person, doing some training sessions, with people, and online, doing all sorts of that stuff. And again, our big picture with that is, we work with a trainer, Roche, who you've probably seen at Fortis. So he's under our umbrella as well. And ultimately, that's kind of what we want to do. We want to build a team of really competent, really good trainers. And because that's how we can affect and impact more lives, right? Our podcast is great. We can reach a lot of people, but when we can train trainers and give people the tools so that they can go out and impact individuals, it creates a bigger ripple effect. So long-term for us, that's definitely part of the big picture, is that eventually we'll become less hands-on and we'll have a team that we will educate and we will find clients for, and we will feed them and help them grow their businesses. So that's a big part of where we want to take things, because the health and fitness industry is inundated with shit. And I'm not afraid to say that. Freya would probably slap my wrist for saying that. You gotta be nicer. Look, the world is inundated with shit. Is that better? Because it is. There's so much bad information everywhere. So true. And we're so locked into this narrative of like I can go on a diet and I will get my results, or, a crash diet, or take these supplements, or I will do hard workouts I'll do this 30-day challenge, or it's all these like blunt tools to try and convince people to spend the money on the shiny object, ride it out until their willpower gives up, and then crash and burn. That's how they make money, right? That's how the fitness industry makes money. To trap people into thinking it's easy and it can be done with one little thing, and that you don't actually have to do any work. And that's bullshit. If you want change, you have to change. You have to learn. You have to be willing to accept that you've made some mistakes.
And be fucking consistent.
Yeah, and that's the consistency, right? Like, it's not... we always ask people, if they come to us with a goal, maybe a lofty goal, say, okay, you want a six-pack. Picture yourself with a six-pack. How are you living your life a year from now with a six-pack? What does your life look like? What are your daily habits? Like, what do you wake up? What do you do first thing in the morning? When do you go to bed? What foods do you eat? What foods do you not eat? Like right now, how much does right now have to change in terms of your schedule? Does your work, do you have to quit your job and find a new job? Like we try and challenge people to really think about that, and like, how meaningful is that goal for you? A six-pack is wonderful. Like, great. If that motivates you to like change your life and get healthier, phenomenal, right? But is a six-pack going to make you happier, right? And we always try and link it back to that, because at the end of the day, humans want connection and they want joy. We all crave those things. And changing your body's not going to bring you joy. No. It's not true for anyone, right? If losing some weight gets you out of pain, yeah, that can bring you some joy, right? If losing some weight like helps you feel better about yourself, because like you can fit in the clothes you used to fit into, or you can, play with your kids. Yeah, those are meaningful things. Those are the things people need to be focused on and thinking about. It's, yeah, sure, aim for the moon. Like, that's a six-pack, or that's I want to squat 300 or whatever. Cool. But like, where are the stars? Like, what does that actually allow you to do? Because you're going to land amongst the stars. You're not going to get to that, but like in your pursuit of that, This is about developing skills that you can use on a day-to-day basis that you're going to do every day, all the time. This is who you are now. Because this is, you can't just be who you are, because that's gotten you to who you are. You have to change some things to get to that point.
Yeah.
And you have to have the right motivation and feel things, not just track numbers, because you don't feel numbers. We're humans. We feel stuff, right? And that's why you go on a strict diet and you just white knuckle it until you blow up and you're like, I can't do it anymore. It's like, yeah, because you were just following numbers. You weren't like actually listening to your body and like asking yourself like, well, I forgot every Friday night I have date night with my husband. I blew it. We got dessert. It's like, yeah, it's date night with your husband. You should probably have dessert. Like, if that's what you do, that's cool. Right. Is that a meaningful bonding thing? Maybe I split a dessert and like what things are important to you? Embrace those things. Look forward to those things. Use those as the carrot you dangle. But week to week, we need to figure out day to day, like, what are you doing? Like, what are the things that are bringing you down? What are the things we can substitute? And like permanently, right? What are you ready to say goodbye to? And that's the kind of stuff that we work with people on, because too many people are using that blunt tool to try and hammer that square peg into a round hole. And it's just, look, yo-yo dieting, research shows yo-yo dieting is super unhealthy. The more people yo-yo diet, the more unhealthy they are as they get older. You screw your body, you screw yourself mentally with everything you're doing with yo-yo dieting. It is a really, really unhealthy habit to just constantly be restricting, and like it's the research shows us that really clearly. So we have to get people away from what we've taught them to this point in health and fitness, and do better. And so with our podcast, we try to do that. And again, more and more, we're going to try and bring on coaches and try and help, diffuse that message across the masses.
That's amazing, kind of to see that you're kind of another person who I meet and talk about, and who is thinking about it holistically, first of all. And second of all, it is about approaching first, and then kind of thinking about it as a change to your life, not even a diet, not even a six-pack, but it is a change to your life and your lifestyle and the things you think, how you go about choosing what you choose or what you don't. And one of the great examples of that is Sean, thanks to whom I just recently started paleo and trying to go at it. And the beautiful thing that we have in the conversations with Sean is that he said, yeah, do it, but do it liberally as well. So having food like that and enjoying life from time to time, and kind of not restricting yourself 100%, and getting to the point where you get so fucking miserable that you don't really want to do anything because you focused yourself on a goal. Yeah. But kind of have that flexibility from time to time too.
Yeah, and the word that resonated with me just right now in that is you said people get to choose, right? Their choices. Look, we all get to make choices. I'm not saying we all start from the same place, or we all have the same privilege, or it's all easy for like. Those are not things I'm saying, because it is, everyone has their own set of circumstances, and some people are really up against it, for all sorts of reasons. So by no means am I saying that, but no matter what situation you're in, we generally all do have choices. Yeah. And that's really what it comes down to, is owning your choices, setting your boundaries, and then taking responsibility for your choices, right? And that piece right there, we go down the rabbit hole on that, but it's, in life, you can blame anyone you want. You can blame others, you can blame yourself, and whatever. Blame is a big thing. In life, sometimes you just have to take responsibility, whether it's your fault or not. Yeah. If you want to take the bull by the horns, if you want change, You got to let go. You got to let go of the blame, whether it's you blaming yourself or blaming your parents or the government, I don't know, whatever. You have to let that go and forgive. Just forgive it. Be like, you know what? I'm here. What's done? It's done. And I have to just forgive whoever that's been. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's someone else. I have to forgive that, let go of that blame, and I'm going to take responsibility for where I'm at and for what I can do.
Yeah.
And the moment you can do that, now the world's your oyster, right? Again, it's good. That's again, not saying it's easy, but when you can constantly, if you reset with that narrative every single morning, if you make that kind of like your daily tenet, you wake up and you're like, okay, I forgive myself for whatever happened yesterday. I forgive them. Today, I'm going to take responsibility. This is what I'm going to do today because I know that that's in line with who I am and who I want to be and where I want to go.
Yeah. And
if you can do that, again, think consistency, right? If you can just do that every day, eventually that part gets easier. Letting go of the blame, letting go of the forgiveness, comes back to that whole judgment piece and criticism. Then you turn yourself into, I'm going to take responsibility and I'm just going to be curious. I'm be like, man, that didn't go right. Why? Why didn't that go right? And then you can learn. And if you can learn, you can make change. And so this all kind of like shuffles back to, we all kind of have those choices. We get to make choices every single day.
Yeah.
And we're all capable of making better choices if we're not locked into all that other stuff that's already happened, right?
And it's also, I believe it's super important as well to kind of forgive yourself and sometimes just give yourself grace. Today is a shitty fucking day.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. Tomorrow we're going to work on it again. Today, let's ride it till the end and just go go try again tomorrow.
You cannot have the good without the bad.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know what good is. And again, this is where social media is so dangerous because you see people who they make you think that nothing bad ever happens. They never make a mistake. They never feel guilty. They never feel like they owe someone.
Such a bullshit.
Yeah. Like, dude, we are all human. Like, we're all, and like, when you understand it is common humanity, then it does get a lot easier. But this is, again, it comes back to like, what are you exposing yourself to? If you're constantly watching the bullshit Instagram fitness stuff, it's never going to happen for you. You got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. I want to hear what is your definition of a maverick.
My definition of a maverick. Oh, good call. I'm going to take some more water though.
Yeah, go ahead. Got it.
Definition of a maverick. I mean, I think you sent me a definition of a maverick.
Okay. Your definition of a maverick.
I think a maverick is somebody who does things their way. And I would also call a maverick as somebody who like gets it done. Like it's somebody who gets it done and they get it done in their own way and without apologies. Like this, I know this is right. I know this is how it can get done and I'm going to get it done. To me, that's what a maverick is.
That's nice. So on that note, what does success mean to you?
To me? Man. Oh, man, so great. This comes back. I was hanging out with some, once in a while, not very often, I was hanging out with some old friends from phys ed. Phys ed that I graduated, so kin, whatever, from Queens. And we got onto the topic of how do you measure success? Because that, again, if I think about my coaching practice, that's everything, right? People set measures for success so irrationally. The expectations are so, right? And again, it's because you look at social media, you think, it's like, I'm going to go on this diet and I'm not going to ever eat gluten again. And it's like, okay. And then talk to them the next day. They're like, hey, I had a cake. Well, a piece. No, I had a whole cake. And it's just like off the deep end. When expectations are so crazy, you stumble really fast. So how you measure success in any aspect of life is vital, right? Because if it's not attainable, you're gonna have a bad time.
Oh yeah.
Right? So to me, success, like, if I want to put that in a nutshell for me, success, I will be successful if I live my life with integrity. To me, if I can distill it down to one thing, integrity is such an important value for me. And I know that if I stick to my values and I live with integrity and I'm honest and I'm compassionate and I'm kind, I will be very successful. I know that in my heart. If I get away from that, look, even if that brought me more financial success, right? That is, so for me, financial, that's not how I measure success. Like, and I'm not saying money's not important. Money's obviously very important. I would like to make more money, right?
Yeah.
But to me, money is not a measure of success, because you can be a crap person and have all the money in the world. So that is not a measure of success to me. Well, congratulations, you're rich. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. Doesn't mean you're successful, right? A lot of people work 20 hours a day and they make all this money and they think they're so successful. They have all these things, all these objects. It's like, great. You're not successful. To me, that's not a measure of success. So I'm successful if I live my life with integrity and kindness, because that means that I'm going to be helping others. That means I'm going to be living true to my vision in life.
Yeah.
And it means I'm going to make connections with people, which is the best thing in the world, is connecting with someone else. That is the human experience. That's what everyone wants and craves. You can say love, you can say whatever, joy, of course, but like, connection is what brings us those things. If you removed every other human from this planet and you were alone, do you think you could have joy?
No.
Not a goddamn chance. It's not possible. We need each other.
Yeah.
We really do. So if I live my life with integrity, I'm going to have all sorts of success, because I'm going to be surrounded by great people and I'm going to have a lot of great connections. So I know that ultimately the key word for me would be just integrity.
So on contrary, what's your failure story?
Oh, my failure story. I mean, we fail all the time. Failure on what? Like, I've already told you how I like failed multiple things in strongman when I should have like done better. Like,
first thing
those
that
things
comes
are
to
easy.
mind though, like the one that pops out.
The one that pops out, I failed my first driving test. That was embarrassing. I tried to make sure nobody knew that. I came from a car family.
Okay.
Came from a car family.
Like
so,
a dealership?
Yeah, my great-grandfather founded a dealership. My grandfather took it over. And so I was born into that whole thing. My dad didn't take it over, or else that kind of would have been my path. But thankfully, my dad deviated, so that kind of took me off the path, which was great, because I didn't care about cars at all. And that made me a pretty big disappointment. But trying to think of something more important. In first year university, so phys ed was a concurrent program. It was a dual degree program. So you got your physical and health education certificate, and you got a minor or a major in something else. So my plan was phys ed and biology. I was in the sciences. I failed biology. So I failed biology first year, so I couldn't take it anymore. So I had to get into another stream. So I ended up in health studies. So I have 2 degrees, one in physical health education and one in health studies. It was fine, I basically fell into health studies because that was the most interesting thing to me, and it wasn't that hard. So university to me was not a great success. I got my degrees, but failing at that was my first real, if I think back into like my first real failure, because high school was, I kind of coasted through high school, got a scholarship coming out of it because I had good grades. I did my community stuff, sports, all that. That was a big, that kind of opened my eyes a little bit, at least, that it's like, okay, this is going to be a bit of a harder journey. I have to pay a little bit more attention to this. And then since then, again, the strongman, not winning worlds, again, I don't feel that as a failure. I would have felt that as a failure, like at the time, like a year before that, I would have felt that as a pretty big failure. I mean, when I worked my sales job, I was not very good. I was not great at those jobs. I didn't put much effort into them. I didn't love them, right? I was not passionate about that stuff. So I never really like pushed my quotas, or it's like get the bare minimum done and do that and get out of it. But yeah, I failed to I never benched 315. That's a sad time right there.
That was a goal.
Yeah. I overhead pressed 315. I never benched. That shows you how, like, hey, you can train anything, right? Because bench should be a lot easier than overhead press. But yeah, lately, again, failures, we all fail all the time. But it's learning from them. I feel like that's probably why there's nothing really resonating with me, is because failures to me are learning opportunities. They're not, they don't define you, right? They define you if you allow them to, and you allow that to be the end of it. And you don't learn, and you stand there and you wallow and you become a dick about it.
Yeah.
Right? Then a failure is absolutely a failure. But when you can fail, like, learn from it. Like, and this is, again, where we've spoken with this a bunch of times already, but it's having that, okay, what can I learn from this? Why did this happen? How do I move forward? Because then you'll grow and you'll ultimately learn from that. So
true.
Yeah.
I want to touch on the kinesiology part. Are you familiar with power versus force?
Yeah.
There is a part of that book where there is a...
I thought you meant the concepts, not the book, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not super familiar with the book, no.
There is the study is done by, I think, PhD doctor who is into kinesiology. That's how you pronounce it? Kinesiology.
Yeah.
And he basically built a graph type of table of level of frequency that is correlated with emotion.
Okay.
And basically where the study started from kinesiological activity that they made and tested patients on. Okay. And there was tens of thousands of people that they basically tested on. I wanted to touch on, because it's peculiar kind of exercise that where they ask their patients to stretch their hands out, and there needed to be two people, and that person who stretched the hand would close their eyes, and the other person who would be giving her or him an emotion or a situation, or kind of they could judge almost everything to the level of frequency and emotion based on that exercise. And if something was, for instance, they would ask someone, is it level 300, for instance, right? And the other person would grab the other person's hand and just slightly push it. If the person hearing that question would let go to the force, it means it's below that level. If it stayed firm, it means it's above the level. And they would be testing it to like level 500 or 700, asking the same question just to kind of mark different feelings and different emotions as well. And there are like levels of emotions. I was really curious if from studying kinesiology, is it some part of schooling that kind of get you guys familiar or even acquainted with how to say it, how that technique can influence the body, or
in terms of like somebody's emotional state impacting their force ability.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that's, I think there might have been like a lecture on something like that at some point in like an undergraduate degree. Like there'd be, maybe that would be something that was spoken about in like a human physiology course or something like that. I can't remember that for the life of me. But then again, going back to undergraduate, for me was 20 years ago. It was a long time ago now. that concept makes great sense though. And so this is where it's really cool. You can talk about energy, right?
That's right.
And energy, like we are energy, like you are energy, I am energy, like my essence is energy, and emotions give us energy. So there's something called, oh man, I'm going to screw this up now. The exact name of it, I forget, but it's like, for example, there's like an example of like, you know, a car fell on a baby and a lady had lifted up the car to like, to get the baby out.
Yeah.
Right. So like in a moment of like extreme, like panic and extreme emotion, we can tap into something that doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting, but Eddie Hall, you remember Eddie Hall? He did like 1,000-pound deadlift or whatever.
Yeah.
He practiced this principle. Like he would actually do the mental reps of like imagining like his children being like hurt to like get himself into like a state to then lift beyond his means. And I mean, it works, right? Like if you can tap into that, you'll be stronger. Right. So that physiological state is something that you can, and again, you can't just do it now, but to practice it and to hone it. To me, anything's a skill, right? Especially when it comes to energy, like even energy work. Like some people don't believe in it. Some people do, but like, it's a thing.
Yeah.
Like just because, and this is where we think as humans, we're so arrogant. We think that if we can't sense something, that it doesn't exist. Like we can't see it, smell it, hear it, feel it, doesn't exist, can't exist. I mean, animals prove that wrong. There are other species on this planet that can sense things that we can't. Why the hell, like why do we think that there's other things that we can't sense, even though we know there are other creatures on this planet that can sense things we can't?
Yeah.
Like it's such an arrogance that we have. And again, this is part of the work that I've been doing is energy there's a lot of stuff going on that we as humans can't really sense to me. And so if you want to talk about that kind of stuff, like energy impacting strength and actions, absolutely is to me a real thing. It's a little like woo-woo for mainstream education. Right?
For
so to have that taught in schools is like,
for sure.
No.
But if you think about it and you look a little bit deeper, even if into Taoism or Hindu, like all the chakras, right, transmitting the energy through, or artists when they, for instance, I had a great guest here, Sonia, who said that when she was singing, basically the energy was flowing through her, right? So, and there's a lot to it, right? There. Being in the flow, we all at some point in time experience that. Some of us can replicate it and live in a more flowy state more time than not. Some of us is just experience like a godly touch on a tap on the shoulder or something, right? Oh,
what was that?
Yeah, exactly. And to your earlier point, you might not see or kind of be able to grasp how the energy works, but even us being surrounded by plants, those plants need to emit energy to push through, to grow, to expand, to collect energy even from a sun, to go through the whole process and produce more O2 for us, right? So yeah, all that is energy.
Plants are amazing.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with plants. We have so many in our place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The plants are great.
Yeah.
Dain, what's your biggest problem?
My biggest problem? My biggest problem. Look, again, because this all comes back to privilege, but I really, in the grand scheme of things, do I have any problems? Right? Like, I don't know, like personally, compared to like most people, I feel like we're all dealing with a lot of the same issues, right? I guess probably the biggest problem I have, that we all have, is what's happening to our planet, right? Like how much time do we have left? And I'll say that being like, I'm not gonna say that we're the ones doing it all. Like look, I don't know, right? I don't know if we're the ones driving all the changes that are happening, or if it's a natural cycle, or if it's a combination of both, and maybe we'll never know, right? But that's a problem. Like, that's a pretty significant problem.
Yeah.
And it's one that's not going to go away, and it's one that's going to keep getting worse. And again, friends and I were talking the other day about when did humans peak? Because we all agreed that we're well past our point. Like, we're past the point where we could have done what is sustainable and like had just been like, yeah, we can have this planet and we can be good, right? And have little conflicts here and there, no problem. But we're going to be okay. We're not going to drive ourselves into a state of such unhealth and destroy the planet kind of thing until the natural evolution of it.
Or become a higher race and finally be able to get out of here, right?
Yeah, right.
But still keep it sustainable.
Yeah, and so that to me was like, that ship sailed like a long time ago. long time ago. Like, we have a lot of cool technology now, but it's also that's what's making us sick, right? That's what it's made our life super convenient and great, but like the fact that everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket now, it's not a good thing. Like, we should not have that. That is not good news. And we're not going back. Yeah. So I'd say that's probably our biggest problem. And then aside from that, I guess more personally, the misinformation. Misinformation is a big problem that I wade through all the time, and just try and empower people because again, that's part of my job. People come to me like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? What is this? And I'm like, well, what do you think? Have you tried that? How has that worked for you? You know? And that's, again, as a coach, it's not my job to tell people what to do or to have all the answers. That's not what coaches do. Coaches position people to be their best selves. That's what a coach does. You coach someone up, right? Yeah, I provide people with information. I can provide people with research. If people want anecdotes, sure, I have anecdotes, but they're n equals 1, right? That's not, not super valuable.
That's right.
So misinformation is a big problem. And a lack of consciousness is a big problem. Phones are a big problem. I will call it phones. I'm not even calling it social media. I'm calling it phones. Look, like I said, they make life great. They're super convenient. But our brains, our eyes are not meant to be looking at this, locked into this, and then trapped, especially by algorithms, right?
That's right.
And then when we go from the mini screen to the slightly bigger screen to do the rest of our stuff, there's too much of it. So people not moving enough, people not being outside enough, people looking at screens too much and not having their own thoughts, being like directed to buy things and to go places based on what their phones are telling them.
Eat stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's that lack of consciousness is a huge problem for a lot of people. And like, man, again, I get sucked into my phone too. We all do. Everyone happens. That's what they're designed to do.
Yes, that's right.
So to pretend you're perfect it's asinine, right?
They're
like you have it, you're gonna get lost in it sometimes. So again, it's catching yourself. And if it becomes a problem, it's okay. What change can I make? What boundary can I set and move forward? But like, I'd say those are some of the biggest problems that I encounter and think about day to day.
Makes sense. Makes so much sense. So, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Oh, yeah. It's funny, right? Because love what you do and never work a day in your life. I hate that saying. But also, I do love what I do. What do I do for fun? I go outside, and I love being outside. Either that's just going for a walk, or going to the park to do some animal flow, or going for a run. I've really gotten into running. And again, not in the winter. I park it for the winter because it's not fun. But in the summertime, when you're just up with the day, when the sun's just come up, the cars aren't out yet, and you can go down in the water in Toronto, you just hear the birds. To me, there's like, nature is fun. Like, nature is just, birding is fun. Going out and like looking at birds and like wondering, well, what kind of bird that is. Oh, that's an interesting sound. Oh, wonder where that bird's nest is. I'm a loser. I'm 40 now, guys. But I do that for fun. I do animal flow for fun. Like, I love moving, training, like lifting weights. Anything in the gym is fun for me. Riding my bike. It's fun for me. Most of these are active things. Hanging out with Freya, you know, just relaxing, playing games, doing puzzles, watching shows. That's fun for me. Connecting with old friends. I was at a cottage this past weekend with some friends, so just hanging out at the cottage, doing nothing, totally disconnecting, just being out on a lake in the Kawarthas and like doing nothing. Just being there, being with others that you can connect with. Do that for fun. Going to the Blue Jays game on Friday because I love baseball.
Nice.
So baseball's fun. I'm in a fantasy baseball league. That's fun. Mostly because I basically win every year. I hope they're listening. But again, those are some of my pastimes and hobbies. But I do love what I do. Like I love coaching. I love interacting with people and helping people overcome things and learn new skills. Like learning to me is fun. Yeah. Nerd alert. But it opens doors. It opens your eyes. It paves the way to change and grow and travel. We travel for fun. Travel's, again, speaking of the planet time, but the travel's great. Love traveling. Love going to Europe. Going to Chicago in a few weeks to watch some baseball there with some friends. Yeah, that's what I do for fun.
It sounds like you have a lot of things that you do in your life for fun. That's amazing.
Yeah, I do. And again, like joy and connection. Yeah. That's what life's about. Life's not about grinding, right? And I friggin' hate grinding and grit. I'm done with those words. You know what? Sure, if you're in your 20s, your teens, you want to grind, you want to grit, push, have at it. But when you get into your 30s and 40s, you better damn well know when it's time to pump the brakes because your body is not going to put up with that. There is a time and place, and when you get a little bit older, that's not it. Self-care is a real thing, right? Like knowing when to be like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go to sleep. Cool. Like, I hate grinding and grit and that culture. Not for me. Like, just that is not my jam. And you talked to me 10 years ago and I was 30 and I was doing strongman. Hell yeah. Like, time and place. You have to understand who you're talking to and what the goals are and what's happening. But if you have like health as a goal or wanting to feel better or lose weight, which is the thing a lot of people want to do, you have to let go. It's letting go of trying to do too much and white knuckle. It's like that's not the answer. You have to let the system win. You have to let your nervous system win. You have to deal with your shit and stop trying to grind. Like, help your body. Don't fight it.
Just give it a way to lead, I guess. So once you let go and give your body that not to the natural flow and natural rhythm, it's everything gonna align itself to where it should be.
Yeah, man. Surrender. It's hard.
Oh yeah,
that's hard. That's a really hard thing. And again, it's time and place.
It is. You mentioned couple times through our conversation that the part of community, the part of being acquainted with people and being around them. What would you do to help people feel that they belong more, if they are part of that group, that your own inner tribe, community?
What would I do to help them feel more connected and stuff? Again, that is where I come back to the making people feel seen and heard, right? Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like, again, I've done a lot of work on that. But I also think back to Frosh Week, my very first week at university, and there was a kid in our class from Japan. He'd been in Brockville at a college here in high school, but his English was still very limited. And I remember we were all out at a bowling alley and like everyone's getting shit-faced and good time. And he was like sitting by himself at the back. And I remember like going and just sitting with him and like trying to like see what was up, right? Because you know what nobody wants to be alone in that kind of situation. And surely he felt a little alienated or just uncomfortable because his language skills were not up to snuff, right? But to give people that time and that space and to be like, you're no different. Like, sure, you feel like you have a limitation here. That's cool. Nobody here cares about that, right? Yeah. Like, that's in your head. I wouldn't tell people this, but like, just to try and make them feel like, yeah, you're no different. Like, okay, we can make this work. We'll figure out how to communicate. And it's just going the extra mile, or, you know, giving that extra time to someone can make such a huge difference.
So true.
And so in a community setting, making sure that nobody feels alienated, right? That would be, you know, if you're, you know, you picture a world where like you're in a tribe again or something. If I was one of the leaders of that tribe, that would be one of my main things. It was like, we have to make sure that nobody feels like an outsider. Nobody feels like they're alienated. If there's a conflict, we talk about it. We talk about why. We get curious. Yep. We don't point fingers. If somebody did something stupid, we're like, yeah, it was dumb. Why? Yeah. Like, what did you need? Right? Why did you feel you needed that? Maybe you felt you needed that because of something we did that we didn't realize we were doing. But having that open line of communication, you never find that out, right? If you're just like, oh, he did a bad thing, get the fuck out, right? It's like, well, maybe we just talk about it and figure out maybe we did something that will cause a problem again in the future if we don't address it as a collective group. So trying to have that open-mindedness and give people that, you know, be seen, be heard, let them speak, and be like, oh, that makes sense. Maybe I didn't consider that. We can probably rectify that. Right?
It is super important to hear and see people, for sure.
Yeah, again, it's all we want. It really is all we want, right? When we feel like we have a connection, then it's all positive. Because then somebody does a thing for me, well, I want to do something for you now. That's human nature, right? We're very reciprocal creatures. It's just, human nature. So making sure that the space is given for that bond or that connection to happen, it's very meaningful, even if it's a small thing, right? So, but yeah, going to nature and tribes and stuff, it's like, that you do something nice, or you share something, or, you know, do something to protect someone. That's right. The nature then is to be reciprocal and to be like, oh, there was some care here. I can let my guard down and return that, and then that's how trust builds and how relationships grow.
I've got 2 questions to sum up this amazing conversation.
Okay.
What question would you like to be asked more often?
That's a good question. Wow, I don't know. That's really interesting. Because I also think in like what context and from who. What do I want to be asked more often? You know, it would probably just be something, it would probably be something very simple and not even very like in depth, but coming back to like being seen and heard. And, you know, it's like, how you doing? You know, how are things? Those are general ways to ask things. But if somebody like really knew me, I think it would be people to ask me about like on a more personal level of like, not how's the family or how's your health, but like Not even sure what the exact question would be. It might just be like, how are you feeling in your body these days? Because that is something I feel like a lot of people don't consider enough. And for me, it would be very thought-provoking. And people who know me, because again, I've been through, like, my body's been through so many different changes.
Yeah.
And even, like, emotionally and personally, like, I've been through some changes. And so to ask, like, how are you feeling in your body these days, I think it would be a much deeper question for me, that I could be like, oh. And then I go, actually really good. Or I could be like, you know what, like today, or recently I've got this going on, but generally I feel really great, but it would actually give me a moment to stop as well, because especially my day to day, like when I'm at Fortis with clients, I'm like in it with them, right? Yeah. Like I'm head down. I'm not thinking about myself. I'm just doing what I'm doing for there. And one opportunity I know that I do have is to slow down, because I do often go too hard, too fast. Like I'm always bleeding. That's an interesting fact about me. Like my fingers, like I burned those the other day. So like I just randomly cut myself or burn myself or whatever, because I'm moving. I'm trying to get things done and go fast, and I don't even realize what I've done until I see blood on something. And Trey's always like, "Why? How?" And I'm like, I don't know what I did. So I know I need to slow down more. And I think a question like that gets me back into my body rather than doing the things.
How are you feeling in your body these days?
Thanks, man. I'm feeling great, honestly. Like I do. So again, to get nitty gritty, my left leg has been a little off. I tweaked something running about a week ago. Not like, it was like a hamstring, like a bite. It wasn't like a full like pull, but like something. And that was just something along that whole chain. I think it was probably hip, but I was startled. I was running and a cyclist came up right behind me really fast on the trail, and I kind of like jolted, and I was like, oh. And he's like, you okay? And I'm like, the hamstring. I'm like, well, I guess I'm turning around and walking home now. But yeah, that leg's been a little foreign. It just feels kind of foreign. I was like limping for a bit, and now it's kind of coming back online. But aside from that, I've had a forearm pathology of some description for the last several months that I can't. It's just pain when I'm holding things, and that's been a lot better recently. It's kind of gone away, and today, just with being at the gym and carrying weights and stuff, like it kind of flared it up a little bit again today. So there's little niggles, little things that are happening in the body, but from a health and like general energy perspective, I really feel good right now. I've gotten a couple nights of sleep in a row. I was at the college this weekend. I did not sleep well, but now that I'm back in town, feeling better. So that's how I feel in my body today.
That's awesome.
Details.
That's awesome. To sum it up, what have been the greatest day of your life?
Greatest day of my life, man. I've had such a great life. Again, coming back to gratitude, right? Like I'm 40, and I've been saying now for almost a decade that it's like, if I went now, like I can't complain. Like, wow, what a time to be alive. And man, have I taken advantage of that. Again, come from great privilege, but I haven't wasted it. And I don't intend on wasting it again. Ever again. Greatest day of my life. There's definitely a few in there for sure. Like, and it's not one of those where I can be like, I don't have kids. It's like, the moment my daughter was born and I held her in my hands. So it's not that. There's been so many good. The day I ran with the bulls in Pamplona. That's not it. That's definitely not it. it would have to be recent. It would be very recent, for sure. It would definitely involve Freya. Absolutely. And again, you don't remember all the details, but it might have been the day. It might have been the day that Freya and I told each other we loved each other. Mm-hmm. Because I remember we were like staying up late. We were on a swing set at a park. She just comes with, she's like, "I love you." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've loved you for a while." I was kind of like, cool. But like the day had been, especially in those early days with her, it's like that honeymoon phase. And you're just like a couple kids, just like running around and like having just a blast. And that was such a formative time, whether it was one day, but those moments that you just share with someone and you have this connection that I never thought I would have that connection again, or ever. Like I had given up on finding a life partner, and not from a place of like, oh, I'm so sad. It's from, I love being single. Like I was like, this is great. I can do my own thing. I don't have to worry about anyone. Great. Awesome. You know? And then, or maybe it was my first date with her, because that, I remember the next day, and I still have like screenshots of the messages that I sent to a friend of mine. And I was like, I'm screwed. I'm like, it's over. And like, pukey face. It's like one date, and like, I know this is it. I'm like, it's done. I'm like, the life I've had, I was so happy with. Now I'm gonna go fall in love. And I still have those messages, and like, it's crazy, right? That I knew the next day, I was like, wow, this is it. And I just knew that. And I still, that first date actually might be it. That might be it, man. Falling over into someone's bushes, making out. Just a couple kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no. Again, if I haven't made that clear, she's had a pretty profound impact on my life. So I have a lot to thank her for, and man, we get to do a lot of really cool stuff and help a lot of people, and we're gonna continue to do some pretty cool stuff. And it's really nice to feel that and know that, and like, it's work. It's gonna be a lot of work. There's up and downs. It's not always, rosy. There's a lot of stress involved in the process, but yeah, it's just so lucky and fortunate to have met somebody who's on the same wavelength like that, and to have built what we're building, and to know that it's just going to continue to grow and have a positive impact in this world. It helps me sleep at night. Yeah.
I'm sure of that. You guys are going places.
Yeah, man.
100%.
Thank you.
Dain, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, buddy. Thank you so much for having me.
And it's a wrap. We dare you. If you are bold enough, hit subscribe, repost the rebellion, and don't miss out on next week's episode. It's going to be bloody brilliant. See you on the next one.